Okay, it's September the 27th, September the 27th, 2022. And the reason I mention that is there's been about a 10-day hiatus from when we started these updates on the chapters of my books until today. Well, during the intervening 10 days, I've contracted COVID for the second time. Unfortunately, that wasn't too fun. It wasn't nearly as severe as the first time back 2 years ago, but and it took me much less time to overcome this one and get feeling better, so that's a good thing. Took me almost 6 weeks to get rid of the COVID the first time around, but this strain is much less severe. Still no fun to go through, but it's much less severe and takes much less time to overcome and get feeling a little better. So it's been about 10 days or 2 weeks, I guess, maybe almost, since I got COVID, but now I'm feeling better. So back to work, driving again. Went to Joe's gang. That's the bishopric that we served with in the singles ward about 14 or 15 years ago, and we've gone to dinner every month since then. And so we went to that last night. My energy level is down even from what it was before, and the energy level wasn't great then, but I'm hopeful that it will rebound and we can get some more energy in the near future. But at any rate, so just an update. I'm feeling much better, and so no problems there. We're okay again. So, all right, this is chapter 9, dealing with surprises that I've had in my life. Haven't had a whole lot of surprises come to in reality. I mentioned that in the book, and I mentioned there were a few there in the book, and they were significant. But I have come up with a couple of others that were definitely surprises. Some positive, some not so positive. The first one I remember was I think I was like 13 or 14 years old. We were down at the Overland Park, which no longer is there now, on the outskirts of Montpelier, just over the railroad tracks, on the way to Paris, on the left side of the road there, which would be the south side of the road. And we were practicing baseball. I was playing first base. I remember it distinctly. An all-star team. And of course, we were throwing the ball around the infield, and doing things that you do in warm-ups of getting ready for a ball game and so forth. And we weren't even getting ready for a ball game. This was just a practice. But I remember being so overcome with zeal that I wanted to throw the ball as hard as I could, and I remember throwing it to the catcher from first base. And after receiving the ball from the shortstop or the third baseman, I would throw it into the catcher, and he would throw it to the coach, and he'd hit it out to another infielder, and we'd go through the infield practice. Well, I don't know if I didn't warm up properly or whatever, but this one particular throw from first base to home plate, I felt my elbow give way. There's something severely went wrong in my left elbow, my pitching elbow. Like I said, I was only maybe 13 years old or whatever, but I knew at that point that there was something wrong, something severely wrong. It wasn't just a strain. I to this day don't know what it was, but I hurt my pitching elbow, and that I remember icing it down and getting a heat pad later on and so forth, trying to get it to feel better, but it took several days for me to even throw a little bit again, and I never was able to throw nearly as well as I did before I hurt my arm. Now, having said that, I went on to play college baseball, but my arm was never quite the same. I was still able to throw very hard, able to do some things there, but that injury when I was 13 years old affected that pitching arm greatly. I wanted to make that my life work for the first 25 years of my life. Even after I hurt it, I hoped that I could rebound. My guess is I would probably have needed Tommy John surgery to repair the tendons in that elbow. I think that's probably what happened, but they repaired enough to where I could do some pitching in the college and was successful at it, but nowhere near as good as I would have been. So that's one surprise that I didn't enjoy much at all. And I think that led later on in my sophomore year of college, where I developed arthritis in my pitching elbow, and the doctor said, yeah, you can continue to pitch, but you'll lose the use of your arm later on in life. So I didn't think that was much of a choice. So I had to give up the game, which was a hard pill for me to swallow. Having said that, though, if I'd have gone on and played for the Yankees, as I thought I might, I would have missed the opportunity to meet my wife, Vicki, and that would have been a disaster of epic proportions. So the Lord knew what he was doing there. I couldn't understand it at the time, was angry, was sad, was all sorts of emotions there, having to give up baseball, which is what I wanted to do and enjoyed doing for the previous years of my life. But the Lord knew what he was doing, and he provided me with the greatest blessing in my life, meeting my wife, Vicki, and eventually marrying her. All right, so there's one. The other surprise that occurred to me as I was reading this chapter was, of course, before you go on your mission, you go through the temple for the first time. Went to the Logan Temple, and my dad and mom were there and so forth, and it was fine. It was very good, but it was a complete surprise to me. The temple ceremonies and the endowment ceremonies and the things that you do in the temple are nothing that you would ever experience out in the world. And so I was taken aback by the first time I went through the temple. It was different. It was a little bit strange, a little bit different. And I remember thinking, are we serious there? But having a testimony of the gospel virtually my whole life, I knew that eventually, after I went through and so forth, and were promised that if you go through, you learn more and more about what goes on in the temple, and the understanding comes and so forth. But the temple ceremony for the first time was a shock to me, and a revelation to me that this is something totally new. Now, today, before you go through the temple, there's a class that you take called temple preparation, and I commend that to any of my grandkids going through the temple. Make sure you go through that temple preparation so you can be prepared much better than I was for going through the temple for the first time. They will talk to you about what's going to happen and how things work, and the ordinances that are discussed there. They can't go into great detail, but they prepare you much better than I was prepared to go through the temple. So I commend you to those temple preparation classes as you prepare to go through the temple, and make sure that each of you get to go through the temple, because that is the goal of the gospel of Jesus Christ, to get every man, woman, and child to the doors of those temples, and to take out those saving endowments and ordinances, so that we can return back to the presence of Father in heaven. And so if any of you have any questions about, should I go to the temple, should I go on a mission, should I do this or that, make sure that part of those decisions will include you going to the doors of that temple and entering therein to receive the instruction that is necessary for you to receive in preparation to return back to Heavenly Father. All right, one other surprise. I've had, I guess, lots of surprises, but this one, it stuck in my mind as I read this chapter. A lot of people have the mistaken notion that if you're feeling bad or sad or down or depressed or whatever it is, that all you have to do is turn that frown upside down and make it a smile, and you're all good to go. Well, in many cases, I guess that may be the case, but there are many, many cases where that is not the case. I had no idea for the first many years, I mean up until 20 years ago maybe, that that depression and mental health was such a pervasive concern for a lot of people in our society. There is a mental, not a mental, but a chemical imbalance in the brain that will cause individuals, certain individuals, to become so depressed that they get into a dark area where they really can't get out. And it requires medication and other things that can help them to rebound from this, never to recover apparently, but to rebound and to regain a little more balance in their mental capacity, where that depression is not so pervasive in their lives. So that is another area that was a surprise, a shock to me. My mom still believes that if you want to change your attitude, you just change your attitude and get happy. If you're sad, you just decide to be happy. Well, that's great for some, and it's true for many, but there are many others that chemical imbalance is a very real thing. So we know that that's the case. Last thing, if you want to be happy, if you want to be content, whether it be as an individual or as a couple, a married couple, whatever, a family situation, I think the key to all of that is the golden rule. You'll do unto others as you would have them do unto you. If we could forget ourselves and look at another person, whether it be a spouse, a child, a mom, a dad, an acquaintance, a working a person that you work with, it doesn't matter who it is. If you can forget yourself and think about that other person and how you can be of service to them, and do that, the beneficial effects of applying that golden rule will be apparent in your life. I've said that to several couples. Forget yourself, think of your spouse. How can I make my spouse happy today? How can I serve my spouse today? Not me, but someone else. And that will ensure that, and if your spouse will do the same thing, that will ensure have a greater sense of assurance for you to be happy in that marriage or in any relationship that you may have. So those are 2 or 3 thoughts about surprises in my life. So thanks for listening again. Have a great day, everybody.